The Colorado sun burned my neck as I stared at the empty parking spot where our SUV had been. My wife, Chloe, and her 3 best friends were gone. My phone, still charging in the cigarette lighter. My wallet, locked in the glove box. All I had were the jeans I was wearing and a sinking realization. This wasn't another prank. The receipt, crumpled in my pocket, told the real story. Double suite, Lakeview Resort, paid in cash. The same resort her girls' trip was supposedly at last month. The same resort where my business partner, Mark, had mysteriously disappeared that weekend. I paced the cracked pavement of the gas station, sweat soaking through my shirt. 18 years of marriage, 3 kids, a business we built together, and she'd left me stranded at a truck stop with nothing but the truth I'd been too blind to see. A semi-truck rumbled to a stop beside me. "You look like a man who just lost everything," the driver said through his open window. I climbed in without looking back. Some losses turn out to be blessings. The morning it all began like any other. The bitter tang of coffee, mixing with the sweet scent of pancakes on the griddle. Chloe's off-key rendition of some pop song drifting from the shower upstairs. Sunlight caught the dust motes floating above the kitchen window we'd installed together last summer. Her handprint still visible in the lower right corner of the frame, where she'd pressed it into the fresh caulk. 20 years of marriage had worn grooves into our lives as deep as the scratches on our wedding silverware. Me rising at dawn to start breakfast, while she packed lunches with the same meticulous care she'd shown when our oldest was in kindergarten. The absent-minded way she'd press her lips to my stubbled cheek before dashing out to another marketing meeting for our diner chain. It never struck me as odd until much later that a business with 3 locations needed weekly overnight conferences in the city. Josh noticed first, our 17-year-old shoving his phone across the breakfast table with that particular teenage expression that hovered between disgust and concern. "Dad, Mom's location says she's at the Westin, but she texted me she's at the Marriott." The syrup bottle slipped from my fingers, leaving a dark stain on the checkered tablecloth that would never fully come out. I made some joke about GPS errors, but that night I watched Chloe's face as she animatedly described her team-building exercise, noticing how her pupils dilated when she mentioned Sarah from accounting. Sarah, who'd been on maternity leave since winter. Sarah, whose name Chloe had written on last month's birthday card in looping letters, nothing like her usual sharp handwriting. The lies piled up like unopened bills after that. The spa weekend, where her Fitbit logged 12,000 steps daily, but her skin lacked that post-facial glow. The black lace teddy with tags still attached buried under gym clothes she never actually sweated in. The way her phone developed a passcode for the first time in our marriage, her fingers always angling the screen away when checking something as innocuous as the weather. I might have convinced myself I was imagining things if not for that Thursday when, driving back from a supplier meeting, I spotted her white Lexus parked in Mark's driveway at high noon. Not at the shopping center where she'd claimed to be hunting for anniversary party decorations. Not anywhere a faithful wife should have been. I pulled over 3 houses down, the leather steering wheel creaking under my grip as I watched the minutes crawl by, on my dashboard clock. 53 of them. 53 minutes where the front door never opened, where the curtains in Mark's bedroom stayed drawn despite the summer heat. When her car finally backed out, I slouched low, catching through my passenger window a fragmented glimpse of my wife. Hair tumbled from its neat bun, lips swollen like she'd been eating strawberries, one hand adjusting her rumpled blouse while the other steered. The same blouse I'd complimented that morning, the same lips that had brushed my cheek before calling me predictable, for suggesting we revisit our honeymoon spot for our anniversary. That night I pulled up our shared phone records, the blue light of my laptop bleaching my face in the dark kitchen. The numbers blurred until a pattern emerged like blood seeping through bandages. Calls to Mark's cell every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon like clockwork. Always under 7 minutes. Always deleted from her call history. Always timed for when she knew I'd be elbows deep in the lunch rush at our flagship diner. The dates aligned perfectly with her late meetings. With the nights, she'd come home smelling faintly of that sandalwood cologne I'd bought Mark for his birthday. With the mysterious withdrawals from our joint savings that always stopped just shy of requiring dual authorization. The changes multiplied once I knew what to look for. The new passcode on her laptop after 20 years of shared devices. The sudden pre-dawn gym sessions where she never actually broke a sweat. The way she'd startle when I touched her shoulder unexpectedly, her body tensing like a shoplifter spotting security cameras. The credit card statement that arrived the following week bore a $437 charge from Lakeview Resort dated during her girls' weekend. The same luxury retreat where Mark had coincidentally attended a business seminar that same weekend, according to his smug social media posts by the fireplace. The truth finally tumbled out one Tuesday evening when I accidentally knocked over her purse, reaching for the salt shaker. Amidst the scattered lipsticks and crumpled receipts, a folded square of hotel stationery fluttered to the tile. Mark's architect's scrawl was unmistakable. Next time, remember the handcuffs. M. The same handwriting that had labeled every blueprint for our diner expansions. The same hands that had clapped my shoulder at last month's business dinner while his foot played footsie with Chloe under the table, his wedding band glinting in the candlelight as he praised my vision for the company. I bided my time until her next spa day. The GPS tracker I'd slipped into her wheel well led me not to the upscale salon downtown, but to a secluded rental cabin 40 minutes north. Through a gap in the curtains, I watched them, my wife of 20 years and my college roommate, laughing as he tipped champagne directly from the bottle I'd declared for our anniversary into her waiting mouth. The same vintage she'd claimed was too special to open yet. Her wedding band glinted mockingly from the nightstand beside the very handcuffs referenced in his note, the diamond I'd saved 2 years to buy, catching the afternoon light like a wink. That's when the pain hardened into purpose. Not toward some messy confrontation or drawn-out divorce, but the kind of calculated revenge that would leave them as hollow as I felt, watching their tail lights disappear from that gas station, stranded with nothing but the clothes on my back and 20 years of lies rotting in my chest. The kind of justice that would take everything from them the way they'd taken everything from me. Slowly, deliberately, and with a smile. The amber liquid swirled violently in my glass as I sat hunched over in the dim back corner of my own diner, the same booth where Chloe and I had celebrated our 10th anniversary. Now my laptop screen displayed grainy security footage of her perched on Mark's desk, his hands roaming under her blouse, the same blouse I'd bought her for her birthday last month. Their laughter echoed through my headphones as they toasted with coffee mugs bearing my diner's logo, their fingers intertwining in a grotesque parody of our wedding photo that still hung in the diner's entryway. For 72 excruciating hours, I let the fury consume me. I demolished Mark's prized golf trophies in the storage room, the shattered fragments glinting like the broken promises of our 20-year friendship. At 3:17 a.m. on the second night, drunk on bourbon and bitterness, I called Chloe's phone just to hear her affected, sleepy voice, that practiced tone of concern that had once comforted me through my father's death, now weaponized to conceal her afternoon trysts. The accountant's email arrived as dawn broke on the fourth day. Its clinical subject line, unusual transfer activity, belied the nuclear warhead it contained, $42,750 moved to an offshore account under Mark's mother's maiden name. Timed perfectly with Chloe's spa weekend in the Bahamas. The elevator to Lydia Chen's penthouse office moved with the same glacial inevitability as my impending retribution. The legendary divorce attorney, the same legal executioner Chloe had unleashed on her first husband, now examined my dossier of evidence with the focused intensity of a surgeon preparing for a delicate operation. "They're not just stealing from you," she observed, her manicured finger tracing a line item in Mark's falsified expense reports. "They're building an entire life on the bones of yours." She slid a contract across the polished mahogany desk, its clauses sharper than any knife. "Shall we help them dig their own grave?" The orchestration of their downfall unfolded with military precision across 3 distinct fronts. The financial mirage. I began casually complaining about cash flow issues at strategic moments, watching with grim satisfaction as Mark's pupils dilated at the mention of potential investors. At the annual holiday party, I played my role to perfection, slurring my words about expansion plans while discreetly recording Mark's barely contained excitement. Within 48 hours, Chloe presented me with routine refinancing documents, her fingers trembling slightly as she pointed to the signature lines. The pages Lydia had prepared contained buried clauses that would later allow us to freeze every asset they'd stolen. The digital dragnet. The innocuous tablet I accidentally left charging in our bedroom became a silent witness to their scheming. The keylogger captured every damning search, quickest state for uncontested divorce, proving spousal abandonment in Colorado, and most chillingly, life insurance payout timelines. The Venmo transactions told their own story. $500 payments to Mark labeled consulting time-stamped during their alleged business trips, followed by heart emojis and the memo, "For our future." The pièce de résistance came via Chloe's iCloud backup, photos of them touring oceanfront properties, her left hand conspicuously bare of our wedding band, the smoking gun. The pen recorder I planted in Mark's office captured audio so clear I could hear the ice cubes clinking in their glasses as they plotted. "The health department inspection is next Tuesday," Mark murmured, his voice dripping with calculation. "A few well-placed complaints about food poisoning, the insurance settlement. By Christmas we could be sipping margaritas on that beach you liked." Chloe's giggle, the same one that had once charmed me across a college bar, now turned my stomach as she replied, "Just make sure Mike's the one signing the shipment forms that day." The evening before the shareholders' meeting found me standing in what had been our marital bedroom, now just a museum of broken promises. My fingers traced the empty velvet groove in Chloe's jewelry box, where her ring should have rested, the indentation as deep as the betrayal. The legal documents in my briefcase carried more destructive potential than the pistol I'd sold the week prior. Let them have their fleeting triumph. Tomorrow, when they stood before our entire company, flushed with victory and already mentally spending their ill-gotten gains, I would unleash the digital tsunami of their own words, their own scheming, their own damning evidence. Every security camera in the building would capture the precise moment their faces morphed from arrogance to abject terror, preserving their downfall in crystalline high definition for all eternity. The morning light, streaming through the conference room windows, carried the same golden hue as the day I'd proposed to Chloe on that Napa Valley hillside 15 years earlier. Now that same sunlight illuminated the hollow spaces where her wedding ring should have been as she sat coiled around Mark at the head of the table, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on his forearm. I watched from the doorway as the catering staff laid out breakfast spreads, their polished silverware catching glints of light that danced across the projection screens I'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and buttery croissants couldn't mask the acrid tension thickening the air as I strode to the podium. Chloe's startled blink when she noticed the additional AV equipment was more satisfying than any slap. The way Mark's knuckles whitened around his pen confirmed he'd already sensed the tectonic shift coming. Every eye in the room followed me with the rapt attention of bystanders witnessing a train wreck in slow motion. "Before we discuss quarterly projections," I began, my voice steady as a surgeon's first incision, "there's an urgent operational matter requiring immediate attention." The click of my remote detonated silent shock waves across every screen simultaneously. Financial records unfurled like a prosecutor's exhibit, each transfer from our joint accounts to Mark's offshore holdings highlighted in blood red. Accompanying security footage showed Chloe accessing our safe deposit box the afternoon she'd claimed to be at a spa. The timestamp overlays didn't lie. Her emergency dental appointment had coincided perfectly with a $75,000 withdrawal. The audio recording played next needed no visual accompaniment. Chloe's voice, crisp and businesslike, negotiating with an insurance adjuster about accelerating payout timelines for high-risk policyholders. Mark's sotto voce suggestions about pre-existing conditions they could emphasize. The collective intake of breath from our board members sounded like a gust of wind through dead leaves. Then came the video, their stolen moments in our vacation cabin, the very place we'd conceived our first child. There they lounged before the fireplace, Chloe wearing the silk robe I'd bought her last anniversary, sipping the Macallan 25 I'd been saving for our 20th wedding anniversary. Their laughter as they drafted plans for Diner Concepts International, using my recipes, my branding, my sweat equity. The final crushing blow came when Mark toasted to finally being rid of that clueless line cook. Unaware, the hidden camera captured Chloe's enthusiastic clink of glasses. The silence that followed was more absolute than any I'd experienced, even in the vacuum of that gas station parking lot where they'd abandoned me. Chloe's mother stood so abruptly, her chair toppled backward, her handbag hitting the floor with a muffled thump, as she walked out without sparing her daughter a glance. Mark's carotid artery pulse visible beneath his starched collar, his breathing shallow as a trapped animal. What happened next unfolded with the inevitability of dominoes falling. The board's emergency vote to suspend all executive privileges, the simultaneous ping of smartphones as Lydia's fraud complaint hit the state attorney's inbox, the first wail of police sirens cutting through the morning calm. Through it all, I remained motionless at the podium, watching the color drain from Chloe's face as she scrolled through the notifications flooding her phone, each alerting another bar slamming shut on the gilded cage they'd built for themselves. By the time the officers entered, Mark was already reciting his lawyer's number from memory, while Chloe alternated between venomous glares and desperate pleas no sane man would entertain. I stepped aside as they led them out, their handcuffs catching the same morning light that had once gilded our wedding bands. The last thing I saw before the elevator doors closed was Chloe's smudged mascara, tracing the same path her tears had taken when I'd carried her over the threshold of our first home. Outside, the crisp morning air carried the faintest hint of coming autumn. The police radios chattered about processing procedures and Miranda rights as I unlocked my car, the weight of the USB drive in my pocket now inconsequential. Somewhere beyond the parking lot, the first customers of the day would be lining up at our original diner location, blissfully unaware of the earthquake that had just reshaped the company's foundation. The specials board would still feature Chloe's favorite pancake recipe, the one I'd perfected over 700 Sunday mornings. The coffee mugs would still bear the logo we'd designed together on a cocktail napkin, and life, relentless life, would continue moving forward, one honest breakfast at a time. The first frost of winter painted the lake house dock in delicate crystals that sparkled like the diamond necklace I'd given Chloe on our 10th anniversary, the one she'd pawned to fund her first weekend getaway with Mark. My signature flowed effortlessly across the final property transfer documents, the pen gliding as smoothly as the judge's gavel had fallen when awarding me full ownership. The realtor, a no-nonsense woman with salt and pepper hair, hesitated before filing the papers. "She put up quite the fight over this place," she remarked, her breath visible in the crisp morning air. I simply stared at the frozen lake, remembering how Chloe had once claimed this view, healed her soul, though apparently not enough to keep her from defiling our bed with my so-called best friend. The ice groaned beneath the dock's pilings, a sound not unlike the choked sob Chloe had emitted when the court ordered her to vacate the premises within 48 hours. Downtown, in a neighborhood where police sirens provided the evening lullaby, Chloe's new studio apartment reeked of stale Chinese food and broken dreams. The building shuddered nightly to the thumping bass of the karaoke bar below, the very establishment where Mark had once drunkenly dedicated "I Will Always Love You" to her at our company holiday party, his sweaty palm creeping up her thigh as colleagues politely averted their eyes. Now, like clockwork each night at 2:03 a.m., the bar's malfunctioning sound system resurrected our song, that insipid one-hit wonder we'd chosen as our tune during senior year spring break. The super told me, with undisguised glee, that the new tenant in 4B had filed 6 noise complaints about the deranged woman who screamed obscenities when the chorus hit. I made sure to tip him generously for that information when I stopped by to inspect the building's newly installed security cameras, purely as a concerned property investor, of course. Back at the diner empire that now bore only my name, business boomed with a vengeance. Each location featured a dishwasher's deluxe breakfast special, a nod to the year I'd spent scrubbing pans while Chloe siphoned our savings. The morning regulars devoured both their pancakes and the latest updates on Mark's legal woes, his once smug face now gaunt in newspaper mugshots, his tailored suits replaced by orange jumpsuits during his weekly court appearances. The bartender at his former country club confided, over a very expensive bottle of my best scotch, that Mark had taken to mixing antidepressants with airport liquor, his hands shaking too violently to sign what remained of his assets over to his lawyers. I made sure to send him a care package, a diner gift card, and a photo of Chloe's latest Tinder profile. Chloe's mother's stationery became increasingly familiar in my mailbox. First, the creamy vellum of polite society begging for mercy. Then the torn notebook pages of a woman unraveling. And finally, the cheap drugstore card with its perfunctory "Congratulations on your new home" scrawled beneath my engraved name. The Christmas cards I sent their family grew more elaborate each year. Glossy photos of Sienna and me hosting charity galas at the lake house, the children's laughter echoing across the same waters where Chloe had once staged her carefully curated Instagram moments. The final letter arrived scented with that cloying gardenia perfume she'd worn to our daughter's christening, the shaky handwriting admitting defeat. "You've won. Now let the dead bury their dead." I framed it and hung it in the diner's office, right beside our divorce decree. The flagship location's grand reopening became the social event of the season. All the dishes Chloe had deemed unrefined, now flying off the griddle, each order slip a tiny vindication. Even the corrupt health inspector who'd conspired with Mark showed up, his ingratiating smile faltering when I introduced him to the new kitchen staff, all culinary school graduates trained in both food safety and forensic accounting. He left his card with a nervous cough, the ink smudging on his sweating palm. I made sure his niece got the job, along with strict instructions to report any suspicious activity. Through carefully maintained connections, I learned Chloe had taken a receptionist position at a walk-in medical clinic, the same one employing Mark's new girlfriend, a dental hygienist with a penchant for married men. The clinic's newly upgraded security system, coincidentally installed by a company I'd invested in, captured some fascinating lunch break activities in the staff parking lot. Not that I'd ever stooped to revenge porn, but the anonymous tip to HR about inappropriate workplace behavior That simply demonstrated good corporate citizenship. These days my mornings begin with the gentle lap of waves against the rebuilt dock. The original had to be replaced after someone, certainly not me, reported structural violations. The world's best wife mug Chloe had shattered against our bedroom wall now holds pens on my desk, its cracks filled with gold lacquer in the Japanese art of kintsugi. Sienna laughs when she catches me smiling at it, unaware that I'm not admiring the craftsmanship, but remembering the satisfying crunch it made when it missed my head and took out our wedding portrait instead. True victory, I've learned, isn't measured in property deeds or courtroom triumphs, but in the quiet contentment of an ordinary morning, the hiss of the espresso machine, the crisp snap of the newspaper, the knowledge that somewhere across town an alarm is blaring in a tiny apartment above a karaoke bar that's just reached the crescendo of our song. I take another sip of coffee, savoring both the rich flavor and the poetic justice of it all. The lake remains still, the diner thrives, and life, sweet, uncomplicated life, marches on. The morning light filters through the blinds of my home office as I finish typing these words, my fingers pausing over the keyboard. This story has lived inside me for years, first as a wound, then as fuel, and now, perhaps as a cautionary tale. But I find myself wondering as I look out at the peaceful lake, did I go too far? Was there a moment when justice tipped into cruelty? Or was every action justified by the depth of their betrayal? I want to hear your thoughts, because these kinds of stories are never simple. Would you have confronted them immediately when you first discovered the affair, or played the long game like I did? What's the most creative revenge idea you've ever heard? No judgment. We're among friends here. Do you think people can come back from betrayals this deep? Or are some fractures too severe to mend? If you were in my shoes at the end, would you have left any mercy on the table? Share your stories too. I'll be reading every comment. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? What's the most satisfying karma-served cold moment you've witnessed in real life? If you could give one piece of advice to someone going through what I did, what would it be? And because I know some of you will ask, yes, every detail in this story is true, though names and identifying details have been changed. No, I don't lose sleep over what happened anymore, but I do sometimes wonder what might have been if things had gone differently. That's why I'm sharing this now, because these choices shape lives in ways we can't always predict. So tell me, what would you have done differently? Would you have burned it all down faster, shown more mercy, taking the high road, or would you have crafted even more creative solution? The comment section is open, and I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspectives. After all, the best revenge stories always have multiple versions. Let's hear yours.